Prologue. A hilltop, 5 miles northeast of the village of Al-Jagbub, eastern Libya. Dusk. Dr. Mazwan Farag wiped the sweat from his brow and cursed the infidel who had plundered the ancient temple he stood in. Dr. Farag did not care that a priceless artifact had been stolen. There was a time when the former Egyptologist would have been horrified. But he had seen the light, stepped onto Allah's true path of jihad, and now understood that the ancient things he had once admired were filthy relics of a debased society. But the theft still brought his blood to a boil, because he wanted to be the one to take it. The middle-aged man wiped his brow again and looked around the dusty, wind-blown hilltop in eastern Libya, just a few miles from the Egyptian border. There wasn't much to see on the surface, just the stone foundations of a large temple ringed by a heap of rubble from where time had pulled down the walls, and a scattering of potsherds scattered on the sandy surface. Sand had filled the temple to the point that he knew he stood a good 10 feet above the floor. Even the holy warriors who had come with him, in the ignorance, could tell that, because at one end of the rectangular temple was a deep pit revealing a statue of Ra. His men had dug it under his direction. But as they did so, his trained eye picked up a detail that made him worry. He could clearly see the outlines of a filled-in pit right around where they were uncovering the statue. The sand had been sifted, had no artifacts in it, unlike the surrounding sand, and wasn't as tightly packed as the rest of the sand. Someone had dug here and then refilled the hole. It had been a while ago, because the sand had settled and grown packed, although not as packed as the sand that had laid undisturbed around it for millennia. If that wasn't proof enough, in one spot he could see a clear outline between the two types of sand, a subtle shift that he could trace sloping downwards. The side of the old pit. He had told his men to continue digging anyway, hoping against hope, until they had revealed the statue of Ra to its full height. Now that hope had vanished. Its staff was missing, taken in the 1940s. And Dr. Farag knew who took it. General Erwin Rommel had led his famous Africa Corps through this region as he pushed toward the Suez Canal. He had brought along a team of archaeologists to search for ancient sites along the way. The Nazis had been obsessed with ancient civilizations, especially that of ancient Egypt. Dr. Farag had hoped this site had eluded them. Now he could see he was wrong. Dr. Farag looked around, temporarily at a loss. The site had been more than just a temple. Surrounding it were more ruins, the remains of a fortress, and the small town that served it. A riverbed wound its meandering way along the eastern base of the hill. It would have once provided water to the outpost, but had long since gone dry. Dr. Farag shook his head. What bitter irony. When he was a younger and more foolish man, and loved the ancient pagan things, finding this place would have been the highlight of his career. He had figured out through obscure papyri and the latest satellite imagery that where he stood was the westernmost outpost of the Egyptian Empire, built by the pharaoh Senusret III in 1840 BC to guard the frontier against hostile Libyan tribes. It was similar to a site he had visited near the village of Ibn Belman in the Sudan to guard the southern reaches of Egypt from the Nubians. In his new life, finding the statue intact would have been the high point of his career, because the statue before him held a stone staff. Its front had been removed to reveal a hollow recess. Inside, he knew, would have been a lead cylinder filled with naturally occurring uranium-235. He knew this because the ancients had discovered a natural source for such fissile material somewhere, and had learned to use it as a weapon via the use of a crude collimator. They called it the withering power of Ra. There had been an identical statue with an identical hidden core at Ibn Balaman in the Sudan. He had discovered it. He had safely put the core in a sealed carrying case and was ready to leave when that American bitch of an archaeologist had swooped in with her CIA friend, killed half his crew, and took it from him. Jana Peters. He had plans for her. But first he needed to make the Sword of the Righteous a nuclear power. "So, what do we do?" a voice behind him asked. He turned and saw Hamza, his right-hand man, a hulk of a fellow with small eyes set close together under a beetling brow. An excellent fighter,